The smoke still clung to Callan Ward's clothes 3 days after the fire. He stood at the edge of what used to be his farm on the colony world of New Terra, staring at the blackened husks of his grain silos and the collapsed skeleton of his barn. The prosthetic nerve interface in his left shoulder ached, phantom pain from an arm he'd lost years ago in a mining accident. He was 34 alone and now utterly broke. The Zareth raiders had come in the night, taking what little livestock he had and burning the rest out of spite. The Galactic Union authorities had filed a report and moved on. No one cared about one human farmer on the frontier. Callan kicked at the ash-covered soil. His neighbors had already offered their sympathies and their advice: sell the land, move to the inner colonies, find factory work. But this land was all he had. His father had broken this ground with his bare hands, and Callan wasn't about to abandon it. That's when he saw the advertisement flickering on his battered datapad. Seeking partnership, displaced persons of all species, modest bride price, inquiries welcome. It was a marriage broker, one of those dubious operations that connected desperate souls across the galaxy. Callan had heard stories, most of them grim, but desperate times called for desperate measures. He had 300 credits left to his name. The bride price listed was 250. He told himself he was just looking for help on the farm. Someone to share the burden. The loneliness he felt had nothing to do with it. The broker's office was a dingy storefront in the nearest settlement, tucked between a plasma welder's shop and a bar that served synthetic alcohol to species who couldn't process earth liquor. An insectoid Vryn greeted him with chittering enthusiasm, showing him holographic profiles of potential brides from a dozen different worlds. This one, Callan said, stopping at a profile that showed a slender, silver-skinned woman with luminous violet eyes. Her name was Sarai Linth, a Celestian from the outer reaches. The profile was sparse. No family listed, no employment history. Just a simple notation. Seeking honest partnership. Skills. Agriculture. Mechanics. Finance. Finance seemed out of place for a bride on a marriage market, but Callan was too tired to question it. The transaction took less than an hour. Sarai arrived 2 days later on a transport shuttle, carrying nothing but a small metallic case and the clothes on her back. She was shorter than her hologram suggested, barely reaching Callan's shoulder, with graceful features and skin that shimmered faintly in the sunlight. "You are Callan Ward?" she asked, her voice melodic but cautious. "That's me," he replied, suddenly self-conscious about his burned farm and his missing arm. "Welcome to, well, what's left of it." Sarai's violet eyes swept across the devastation without flinching. "Fire damage? Recent raiders?" "Zareth," Callan confirmed. 3 nights ago." She nodded slowly, as if cataloging information. "I can work with this." Over the following weeks, Sarai proved herself to be far more than Callan had bargained for. She worked from dawn until dusk, her stamina matching his own despite her delicate appearance. She repaired the irrigation system using salvaged parts, recalibrated the soil enrichment processors, and even jerry-rigged a defensive perimeter using old mining sensors Callan had forgotten he owned. But she never spoke about her past. Never mentioned family, home, or how she'd ended up on a marriage market. Callan didn't press. Everyone on the frontier had secrets. One evening, as they sat on the porch of his small house eating a simple meal of reconstituted protein and hydroponic vegetables, Sarai finally broke her silence. "I need to tell you something," she said quietly. Callan set down his fork. "All right. My people, the Celestians, we were merchant lords once. My family controlled trade routes spanning 3 sectors." Her eyes grew distant. "There was a coup. A rival house betrayed us, seized our assets, and placed a bounty on our heads. I escaped with only one thing." She stood and retrieved the metallic case she'd brought with her. Opening it, she revealed a data crystal pulsing with soft blue light. "Encrypted financial accounts," Sarai explained. "The accumulated wealth of 6 generations. 400 million credits," Callan nearly choked. 400 million? I couldn't access it without drawing attention. The moment I tried, assassins would come. But here, on this forgotten farm, in a name no one is watching? She looked at him intently. "I can rebuild my life. And yours? Why didn't you just buy a planet somewhere?" Callan asked, still reeling. "Because I was tired of running, tired of politics and betrayal. I wanted something real. Something honest." She smiled faintly. "The broker's advertisement said you were stubborn and kind-hearted. I took a chance. Callan laughed, a genuine, surprised laugh that felt foreign after weeks of despair. You bought me as much as I bought you. Partnership, Sarai corrected. That's what we both agreed to. Within a month, the farm was transformed. Sarai carefully funneled credits through a maze of shell corporations and off-world accounts, making it appear as though Callan had received a series of agricultural grants and insurance payouts. New silos rose from the ashes. State-of-the-art equipment arrived in unmarked shipments. They hired workers from the settlement, good people who needed jobs and asked no questions. But more than that, something else grew between them. Callan found himself looking forward to their conversations in the evening, to the way Sarai's eyes lit up when they solved a problem together. She taught him Celestian cooking and he taught her Earth folk songs. The partnership became something deeper. 6 months after Sarai's arrival, Callan stood in the same spot where he'd once stared at ruins. Now golden grain swayed in the breeze, stretching toward the horizon. Sarai stood beside him, her hand slipping into his remaining one. "Thank you," Callan said simply. "For what?" "For taking a chance on a one-armed farmer with nothing to offer." Sarai squeezed his hand. "You offered me something no amount of credits could buy. A home, a future, trust." She looked up at him. "That's everything." As the twin suns set over New Terra, Callan Ward realized that sometimes the best investments weren't measured in credits or land. They were measured in the courage to trust another soul, no matter how unlikely the circumstances. And in that moment, he was the richest man in the galaxy.